Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to an unboxing for G.I. Joe Mission Critical. This is a tabletop miniature slash card game. So if you watch my other videos in my channels, I've done a lot of stuff for Power Rangers, Heroes of the Grid. This is the same system of games, which is now being dubbed the Guardian system. So if you've already played Power Rangers, you own Power Rangers, and you saw this, and you're like, oh, this was very familiar. It uses the same overall basic mechanics, although there are a few changes here and there to accommodate G.I. Joes. They changed some of the names of like what things are called. So instead of Rangers, they're called. I don't remember off the top of my head what they're called. They're called Heroes. So they do have a little sheet that came in the box that explains all the basic changes. Like, instead of monsters, now they're called lieutenants. They're still bosses, nemesis, and foot soldiers, but G.I. Joes aren't rangers. They're heroes. They're not fighting monsters. They're fighting lieutenants in the Cobra army. They also changed up how the deployment system works. So I'll go over that when I get to that point. And then they changed a couple other little things. The other big change is the vehicles and Zords, because obviously G.I. Joes don't have giant, massive, story called dinosaurs and car Zords, but they get to ride in a variety of vehicles, which changes how the gameplay works. You can freely mix and match these all together, which is what's really fun about them. I'm not going to do a lot of comparison to the Power Rangers game in this video. I'll maybe do a later video where I do like a more direct comparison to like, hey, what's this, what's this. We just want to focus on this set. So this is the base set for the game. It has been released by, of course, Renegade Studios. There's also a second one mini expansion that came out. And then, like lots of Renegade Studio stuff, they have their store exclusive, which all this is funded through Kickstarter. They sometimes probably do the same thing they did Power Rangers. They'll release some stuff through a Kickstarter occasionally, or they'll release it through their web store as a pre-order. And you can get bonuses that way for either Kickstarting or pre-ordering ahead of time that you get for free, but then they're later available in the store. So they don't lock anything really behind maybe a timed exclusive, but not like, oh, you didn't kickstart this, or you missed the Kickstarter, so you can't get any of this content. You just get it cheaper if you can pre-order it or kickstart it ahead of time. Yes, let's hop in and take a look at what this is. Alright, so G.I. Joe Mission Critical. So the game, you play as a couple of different G.I. Joes. Each player has their own deck of 10 cards. And you're going to, so there's all the different components. You're going to do is be trying to defeat the bad guys. So you're going to have a giant circular board here that says 4 locations plus a command center in the middle. So each turn, bad guys are going to deploy different Cobra troopers, bosses, lieutenants. So guys like Cobra Commander, Baroness, Dr. Mindbender, otherwise just regular Cobra troopers are going to deploy. You're going to take your heroes such as Duke, Snake Eyes, Cover Girl, Scarlet, and Stalker are the 5 in this set. And they're going to, as enemies appear on different parts of the board, you're going to move your Joes to different areas to deal with them. It is a 100% co-op game, so you're going to have to work with the rest of your teammates to decide what's the best course of action. Does it make sense to have Snake Eyes run over and deal with 2 Cobra troopers by himself? He can probably handle them, and then have Duke and Scarlet go after maybe the Baroness. When Cobra Commander appears, do you only want to send 3 guys over to take them and have your other two Joes maybe try and clean up some of the surrounding guys so they don't get overwhelmed? Or do you just send everybody to deal with Cobra Commander all at once? Depending on how the board laid out, it's going to change from time to time. So that's kind of the gist of it. So you have all these different boards here. You're going to play your cards. It's actually also neat is because when you actually get into the combat of the game, and during the turn, everyone just, there is no turn order. So it's not player 1 goes, player 2 goes, player 3 goes. You move however you move, and you do actions according to what seems best for the team. So you can kind of move 2 guys to one location, have them fight the battle. Then you might be able to then move one of those to another area and have them help join the other guys for a battle. So you don't have to like move everybody, then do all the battles. You can move to a battle, move to a battle. It's just a bunch of different options. It's really, really fun. So how to play, how to win and not win, I guess. If a hero is defeated, there are no more energy tokens in the command center, the Joes lose. At the end of the deployment phase, if all 4 outer locations are panicked and there are no energy tokens in the command center, the Joes lose. So you can lose by 2 ways. Basically have these energy tokens that essentially work like extra lives. If one of your characters is KO'd, you can spend one of these to basically revive them, and then you can keep playing. And if any of the areas get panicked, meaning there's too many villains in one area, which means you're not doing a good enough job spreading your team out to take care of all of them, or you get bad rolls and you just can't defeat them, then you remove all the tokens and you can lose that way. So yeah, either you die too many times or too many bad guys overwhelm all the areas. You win, though, if you can defeat the boss and survive the end of the battle. So not only do you have to defeat all the boss's cards, you still have to also survive. So if the boss has henchmen with him, some foot soldiers, they could still kill you even if you take out the boss. So you defeated Cobra Commander, a foot soldier could finish you off and somehow win the game. It's just kind of interesting. So round structure, there are 2 different structures to the round. So the deployment phase and the action phase. So the deployment phase is actually going to determine how you place minions out on the board. So I'm not going to get into too much of this, just very quickly on it. Though, is you're basically going to have different decks. You're going to flip over the card, and they're going to show a symbol. You're going to show 1, 2, or 3 different Cobra symbols. So it's either going to show a... let me see if I have these here. We can just show off a little bit better ones. So you're going to have... They're upside down, but you're going to have either a red and white one or a black and orange one. And that's going to determine which group of foot soldiers you're using. So one represents one represents the other. This is the difference from Power Rangers. Because in Power Rangers, every figure is tied to a location. So if you're using like the Putty Patrollers, they're tied to 2 spots. They can only appear there. With this new system, the Guardian system that I have for G.I. Joe, you can now have any character appear on any area. So it's actually kind of cool. So you can mix and match these guys with the other guys, or you can have different Ranger villains eventually, if you want to, appear in different locations. It's kind of a neat thing. But basically, if you draw this card, it's going to show you're going to put 2 troopers in the area of the tank, which would be that area. And like this one here is showing you flipped over and you had 3 orange ones. So you're going to put 3 of the red troopers into this area of the globe. But then you're also going to reveal Copperhead. So he's going to be a lieutenant. So he's a little bit harder guy. You're going to put him in that area as well. And when the lieutenant appears, you panic that zone. So you have to give the harder guys panic zones immediately. Smaller guys have to add up to a number. Yep, that's basically how it goes. And then, so basically what you're going to do is you're going to flip over. So there's going to be 5 enemies in the deployment phase. So I always flip over 5 sets of cards. So every time there's going to be 5. Now you can play a little bit easier mode and do 4. Might be recommended maybe to start with. But it's supposed to be 5. So basically every turn you have to defeat some amount of guys, or the game will end very quickly. Alright. Because then we're going to have stuff like this, where all areas are going to become panicked. So as guys become panicked, if there's panic and there's too many guys in an area, then when they get summoned, they move to the next area. So if like one area becomes full, they're going to keep moving in the next area until the board fills up, and then you lose. So then the second thing you do is the action phase, which is what the Joes did to do. So now after you've seen where all the enemies have landed, you decide where you want to move, to battle, or to recover. So your move action is every player will have 2 action tokens. So you can take 2 actions per turn. Flip one over to show that you've used it. So the one is moving. You may move your hero from its current location to any other location, regardless of distance. So it doesn't care if you move from one here, or if you move one to there, or into the command center, or out of the command center. That's not an issue. It's not one space. It's just moving to a different location. When you move to the pit, or the command center, which is the center square, you get to do a special power-up action, which lets you shuffle all your cards to your hand, your discard pile back to your deck, and then draw a new hand of cards up to 5. Additionally, you get 1 energy token. If you already have one, it's a free action. So what's kind of the point of that, just to jump ahead a little bit. You have 10 cards in your deck. Your deck is your life, though. So if you run out of cards in your deck, so as you take damage from villains, they usually tell you to discard cards from your deck, or you'll end up discarding to avoid damage, which we'll get into. But if you run out of cards, your character's KO'd and you lose. So you want to go back to the things you can shuffle. Go back to the command center or the pit to reshuffle your discard pile back in. Because it gives you more opportunities to reuse cards you've used, plus it basically refreshes your life. Then the energy tokens are what you use to pay for cards. A lot of cards cost 0, a bunch of cards cost 1, but they're 2 and 3 cost, and X cost cards that can cost multiple points. The second option you have to do is battle. So if you want to initiate a battle, so once all your Joes have moved to a location and you're ready to fight that area, one player can initiate the battle. So if I have Duke here, Cobra Girl, and Snake Eyes in a battle, Duke can initiate the battle. Then you start the battle phase. You play cards, spike the villains, try and defeat them. Then when that battle's over, if Duke still has another token, he can initiate another battle. Or Cobra Girl can initiate the battle. Or Snake Eyes. So you can battle multiple times there to defeat each thing. So it's not one-time battle only, and then the next deployment phase. As long as your characters have energy tokens to spend, you could do it. So if everyone happened to already be in a location at the beginning of a turn, and they'll at the beginning of deployment, when all the enemies move there, and you had 3 guys there, you could potentially do 6 battles. It shouldn't hopefully take you 6 times to defeat all the villains in an area. I think the most I've ever done is like 3, but it's a potential option. And then your last thing you can always do is spend one of your action tokens to recover. So recover is kind of like the power-up from the pick, except it's a limited version that you can do at any location. It says when you perform recovery, you may choose cards from your discard pile with a total of 6 shields, shuffle those back in your deck, and take 1 energy token as a supply. So you only get to pick up to 6 kind of points worth of cards versus your entire discard pile. So like they're showing here is that they took a card that has 3, a 1, and a 2 shields on the bottom. So they have 3 cards to get add back into their deck. So that helps you. It helps you because you can do it right there and you don't have to move. So this could be great if you fought one battle, used a bunch of cards, you took some damage, but you want to fight them again. So one player could go ahead and do a recover action, get some of their cards back, and then someone else could initiate the battle, or they could use their other token to initiate the battle if they had one, without having to spend. Otherwise, you have to spend 1 move to go to the pit to recover everything, then use a second one to go back. So you could use 2 actions to move from one to the other and recover everything, or you could use 1 action to recover a few. Maybe you only took 2 or 3 hits of cards, and you just need a couple to make sure you don't lose in that battle. Any characters that are at a location when a battle starts are in the battle, whether you participate or not. You might have 1 card in your hand, or no cards in your hand, or nothing you can play because you don't have enough energy. but you're still considered to be part of that battle, and you could still potentially take damage. So you can't avoid it just by saying, so if you don't want to have to worry about your guy dying, because you're down to like 1 health left, or 1 deck card in your deck, then you're going to have to move them, or maybe you don't initiate that battle. How to resolve battles? Very easily. So hero preparation. There are 4 steps. Heroes take 2 energy tokens from the supply, place them in an indicated portion of the power board. All heroes participating in the battle may also add any energy tokens they have on their character to the supply. This is known as a shared energy pool. Then each hero adds their stored energy, if any, to the shared pool. So basically, if anyone has any energy tokens, they add them all to this, and you have 2 to begin with. So every turn, no matter what, you'll always have 2 energy that any character can use. And if anyone has extra energy on their character, they can add it back in. And then what you can do is that the stored energy is at the end of the battle. If there's still energy in that shared pool, you can spread it back out amongst everybody else so it's stored, so that they can take it to a different location with them. Because any hero who has fewer than 5 cards may draw as many cards as they wish from their deck up to their maximum hand size of 5. These may be drawn one at a time, and you may decide after each draw whether to keep or stop drawing. So, what it's just showing here is showing Duke is going to draw 3 cards. Stalker, who already had 4 cards, is going to choose not to draw anymore. And Cobra Girl already has 5 and can't draw any. Now again, your deck is your life, so if you're down to 5 cards, you're probably not going to want to draw 5 cards because that would kill you. You might not even want to draw 4. You might want to draw 1 or 2. And then let everyone else on the team do most of the battling that round. So that makes sure you don't take a big hit and die. But then maybe you at least have something to contribute. But it also might depend on what you're drawing and what you think you need. So it's cooperative. You have to work with your team to decide, hey, if you have 3 players at an area, and everyone else is like, hey, we can, like I have a hang of 5, I have a hang of 4, like she has 5, and he has 4. Does the Duke character really need to draw a bunch of extra cards? Maybe the other 2 can just handle it, and then he just draws a couple to help out. So yeah, it's interesting. You gotta kind of play around with how you do that. Then the enemy preparation. Count the number of foot soldiers at the current location. For each foot soldier, draw one card from their deck to match the enemy deck. As you draw this card, place them face up in the bottom row of the battle board. This is a combat sequence. Cards with fast are placed at the leftmost row instead. And then heroes and enemy turns. So the heroes and enemies take alternate turns. Heroes usually take the first turn in the battle, but if at least one enemy card contains the fast keyword, then enemies take the first turn instead of the heroes. Enemies do not take multiple turns in a row, no matter how many cards have fast. So you're going to basically place these cards on this board like this. So if there's three villains in there, 3 Cobra troopers, you're going to play 3 cards down. If there's 4, you'll play up to 4. You'll never play more than 4. So if there was 5 or 6 of them, you're still only going to fight 4. But that means you can only eliminate up to 4 troopers at a time. So if there's 6 in a zone or in a location, you're only going to be able to defeat 4 every time. Now, if you have a boss, a lieutenant, or a my brain can't think of the third one. Boss, lieutenant, or nemesis, like Baroness, they go on the second row up on the top. So like this one showing you have 1 Baroness and 2 Cobra troopers here. Or Crimson Guard, as this should be a case. You're going to draw your 2 cards for the Crimson Guard. They're going to go down here on their own. And the Baroness and any of the other boss characters, the non-foot soldiers, always are going to draw 4 cards from their specific deck. Every time, no matter what. They're a lot harder to beat. And then to beat, so you're going to always have 4 cards up on the top. And then battle cleanup at the end. If there are any energy tokens remaining in the shared pool, heroes who participate may split them amongst themselves. You can only store 1 energy. So that's also a thing to remember, is that if your shared pool, like you play cards and you gain more and more energy, if you have 3 heroes in there, at the end of the battle, if you have any energy over 3, it's gonna get wasted. You can split the 3 amongst each other, but the rest will go away. So you might want to prioritize. You don't have to. It might not make sense to do it, but if you have cards that cost points and you have energy to spend, you may as well spend at least up to what you can. Like, don't hold back and gain, like, don't build up. Like, if you build up, you have like 8 energy built up, there's no point not to use a higher level or higher cost card, because at the end of the battle, all that energy is going to go away anyhow. But there might be a reason not to. Maybe you don't need it. It's too powerful. Like, I only need to do 1 hit. I don't need to play a giant card that does 5 hits worth of damage. Alright, next is any foot soldier enemy cards defeated or undefeated. Any cards defeated or undefeated, and all undefeated lieutenant, nemesis, and boss characters are removed from the combat and shuffled back in their respective decks. Any defeated lieutenant, nemesis, or boss cards are placed face up in your discard pile. So any foot soldier cards are always put back in the deck and reshuffled. So you never know which ones you're going to get. Any of the higher level boss, lieutenant, or nemesis cards, you keep to the side to keep track of how many you've beaten. So every time I beat 1 foot soldier card, it counts as me defeating a foot soldier. But anytime I beat one of the nemesis cards, or bigger character cards, it counts as me defeating, basically doing a hit on them. So like the nemesis and the nemesis and the lieutenants have to defeat 4 cards. So I have to defeat 4 of their cards. So I might defeat all 4 in one run. Great, I beat them in one battle. I might defeat 1 this turn and then 3 the next battle. You might have to fight them multiple times. The bosses, on the other hand, you have to defeat 6 cards. So you're going to have to fight them at minimum twice. So if I defeat them the first time, all 4 cards the first time, I still have to play and defeat 2 more cards just to beat him. Alright, how to play cards. So cards are very simple. They're going to have an energy cost up in the corner. So it's the 0 up there. They're going to have a card type, which can either be an attack, a maneuver, or a reaction. The effect they can do, what hero it goes to, special defenses, and shields. So attacks are very simple. Attacks are what you're going to do damage. It's going to show you how many dice you're going to roll. And I'll go over these when I show off one of the cards. Maneuvers are going to be basically non-attack abilities. They're going to let you gain energies, draw cards, discard cards, do different things like that. And then reactions are going to be cards you play in a reaction to something else. So usually be like if another player plays this card, you do this. If a villain card does this, you do this. So you can only play them in certain instances, but they're definitely helpful. And then we have to deal hits. So when you deal hits to an enemy, you place tokens on the enemy card equal to the amount of hits, or the little star symbols you draw. And then circles are misses. So very, very easy. So it's either a miss, a 1, or a 2 hit are the things you're going to roll. She says once you've done the amount of hits to them, you flip that card over. It says when a foot soldier card is defeated, remove 1 matching foot soldier from the current location placed on the experience track. Foot soldiers are not meant to be limited, so you could run out, use something else. But every time you defeat a card off of your board, here, you flip it upside down. Or you flip it upside down, or you can turn it sideways, whichever you decide, to show that it's been defeated. So that way you don't have to worry about you flip it upside down so you know it's been defeated. So you don't have to worry about it being used. And then defeating Lieutenant's Nemesis, we kind of went over that. Gaining energy, some cards let you gain energy. Very simple. The enemy's turn, they're going to have a lot of the same stuff. So it says, during an enemy's battle, resolve the active enemy card with the leftmost and topmost card in the combat sequence is not yet resolved. There are 2 rows, resolve all the top row first. So the bigger guys will go before the foot soldiers. To resolve an enemy card, tear out all effects and turn it 90 degrees. If the active enemy card is face down because it's already been defeated, then no effect occurs when resolving it. So, card and enemy. Health, up in the top corner, says Ambush has 3 health, belongs to the Crimson Guard. The little foot soldier symbol, if it has a special keyword, and it has its special effects. There are 3 keywords. There's fast, which just means it gets moved to the front, and then the only bad guys that go first. Guard is basically a blocking keyword. Any enemy card that is adjacent to the combat sequence horizontally and vertically are guarded, cannot be targeted. However, cards with guard cannot themselves be guarded by another guard. So what that's saying is, let's look back at our board here quick. It's saying that if this card here had guard, which it doesn't, but just for the purpose of this, if this card had guard, means you could not attack this card or this card because they're adjacent. You have to defeat this one first. You could still attack the first one, the third, and the fourth one, but they block all of them. Now, if this card over here had guard, it would only block this one. And then what it's saying with double guard is it's basically saying if this card and this card had guard, you would not be able to attack this card or this card because the guard from this one would block those two, but this guard would block that one. So the only cards you'd be able to attack would be this one and then either one of these because they can't guard each other. So that's basically how that works. Guard is kind of an annoying but fun ability. So they're showing that, how it's guarding it for them. And then passive are just ones that they don't actively do anything, like this have a standard effect. Usually it's like instead of a card saying this does this damage, a passive will be like this increases this damage, or it reduces this damage, or does something. Then damaging heroes. Enemy cards deal damage to heroes when they resolve. The enemy is dealt damage by the heroes positioning in battle. Collectively choose one hero to suffer the damage. So if a card says deal 2 damage to hero, deal 2 damage, you get to choose who takes the damage. This is again why it's really a fun cooperative game, because you can decide who can maybe force it. Maybe one guy has better defense than somebody else, so they can afford to take the hit. Maybe one guy has more health. That might make a difference as well. So when you deal damage, you reveal cards from the top of their deck equal to the number. If the number of shields is greater than the amount of damage, the revealed combat card is placed in the bottom of the hero's deck face down. If the number is equal to the amount of damage, the revealed combat card is discarded. If it is less than the combat damage, the hero must reveal the next card until compare their shields. So what this is saying is this card here, Copperhead here, did 5 damage to CoverGirl. If you're going to flip over the first card, it's 3. So the number of the shield is 3. It's less than the damage dealt on the card, so the card is discarded. So you reveal the next card of the deck because the number is greater than the remaining damage. She places a card on the bottom of her deck. So basically saying if you take 1 damage, and you draw a card that's 3 or 2, you get to keep that card. You block all the damage, that card goes back in. If you take 4 damage and you draw 1 shield card, that card goes to your discard pile. You took that hit, you can't deal it. Now you still have to block 3 more damage. So if you drew a 3 cost, so it says if it is equal to the damage, the revealed combat is discarded. So even though it's equal or less, you still get rid of it. But if it was over, it would be fine. So if you had a 2 and a 3 to block 4, you'd be fine. The 2 would block it, then the 3 would stay. So basically your higher level shield cards will help keep cards in your deck, but then the lower level ones will just get discarded a lot quicker. So it kind of helps, because sometimes there's cards like you replace cards back on top of your deck. So then you have to decide, does it make sense to put a card on that you want to draw to play, or is it a card you want to keep for defense? So if a hero even has 0 cards left in a combat deck, that hero is defeated. Remove 1 energy from the command center. If a hero is defeated, there are no energy tokens remaining in the command center. The heroes lose. The defeated hero is a figure removed from the board and moved to the command center, shuffles all their cards to form a new combat, and then draws up to 5 cards. Also takes 1 energy. So basically, they get a power up. If the lead hero is defeated, they pass the lead hero token to another player. Alright, so then we have our vehicle cards. So these function similar to the Zords in the Power Ranger game. With one big difference is in here, as you defeat foot soldiers, you put their figures on our little experience tracker board showing on this chart here. We'll look at the big board when I get to the components. But yeah, then what you do is then you can spend them at any time to play one of the 3 revealed cards that are showing during the battle. They can pay for 2 to play the Ram, get its special ability. Versus the Power Rangers and the Zord, you had to wait till you had 6, you had to draw a random Zord, went to that specific Ranger. Then only that Ranger would be able to use its ability. And most of them could be used outside of a battle. Some only affected the battle that they were in, so placement on where that Ranger was made a difference. This is the same thing. They can usually only be used in the battle that they're in, but everyone has access to it, so you don't have to try and make sure you bring that particular character to the battle. Plus, they have a bunch of different options. The other neat thing, or other thing to pay attention to is a warning. So if you have more spots there on the board, so what was there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. There's 10 spots on the board. So if you ever have more than 10, you ever defeat more than 10 foot soldiers, the 11th one is discarded. So you do want to spend and pay for vehicles fairly often, so you're going to keep using them to eliminate more guys, put more figures on that board to spend and use it, but you don't want to, on the same note, you don't always want to spend too much, because if you keep buying a 2 and a 2 and a 2, then a 6 cost card pops up, you might not have enough to pay for a 6. That card's just going to sit there. Then if you defeat a lieutenant or a nemesis, you get to return the figure to the box, and you gain a vehicle token, which lets you play 1 for free. Now there's only 2 in the set, because you're only going to put typically one villain or 1 nemesis, or two lieutenants, or maybe 2 nemesis. You only have usually 2 of them in the set, so once you defeat one of them, now you can always play special missions where you have more, and then you just kind of gotta maybe deal with it there. Maybe if you spent the token, you can add another one. That's your call. But yeah, it's just basically like you get 1 for free. Power Rangers did a similar thing. Once you did it, you got beat one of them, you automatically got a Zord. And then the pit, which we kind of talked about before. This is the big circle that's in the middle of the board, which lets you do that power-up ability. So they're called the command center. Is the name of the space on the board, but this specific one is called the pit. So as expansions come out, they will potentially release different circles that go in the middle, which will also be command centers, but they'll have different abilities. Like the Power Rangers, I think there's 5 different ones right now for different series of the game. So there's the original command center, which is from Mighty Morphin, but then they have some for Time Force and Hyper Force, and I think some of the other ones, which each have their own different abilities. So that is actually a neat thing there. So then as the game goes on, they'll have different abilities. So if you want to play something other than just that kind of hey, refresh your hand, then maybe you have to rely on doing the recovery option more. So player count changes. Games with 2 players, you're going to play a little bit differently. And there's just some different stuff there. You can play with different amounts of players. They're going to play with 4 players instead of 5. You can, or if you're going to play 3 players, you're just going to change a little bit of the stuff there. Less for for different player amounts you have. Usually it's just you're getting more action tokens, or you're playing with multiple things, just because the game is meant to be played with 5 characters, or possibly 6. So if you're playing with less, it's just giving you the options to change some of the rules around. Then there's also location effects. So each spot on the board you can flip over and it'll give you special abilities, which are really fun. So if just defeating the foot soldiers isn't challenging enough, or maybe is too hard, depending on how you want to look at it, you can flip the boards over and they have special abilities. 2 of them are negative, 2 of them are positive. So the negative ones will make those areas harder to defeat, because you go there, you might have to discard a card, or lose an energy point, or something like that, or villains or bad guys might gain 1 extra health. And then the positives are the opposite way. You might get to draw an extra card, gain an extra energy, stuff like that. So again, as more sets come out, you could again always mix and match that. You want a little bit harder game, you could pick 4 locations with negative effects. Or you could pick just 2 locations that have positive effects and keep the other 2 the other direction. And then the command center can also be flipped over for assault mode, which is challenging high threat game. With this mode, when the enemies cannot be deployed to a location because it's panicked, they are placed at the command center instead. Whenever a boss is deployed, they and all foot soldiers that are part of the deployment are always placed in the command center. If there are any enemy figures in the command center at the end of the action phase, the heroes lose. As long as there are any enemy figures at the command center, heroes cannot power up by moving the command center. However, any hero is there when the last enemy is defeated may immediately power up. Yeah, so that's actually kind of neat. So then what it does is basically it gives you 1 extra zone that can become attacked. Then there's crossover rules for the Power Rangers. We'll just kind of go over this briefly. Again, I'll probably do a separate video on this. But the terminology has changed. Rangers to heroes, monsters to tanks. The symbols have changed. So we have a putty symbol is a circle. A diamond is like a monster claw. The hexagon is a nemesis symbol, and the pentagon is a nemesis, and the hexagon is like a moon, and that's for the bosses. And then basically it changes to a foot, some arrows, a skull, and the Cobra symbol. Otherwise, they work the same. So, like, the foot soldiers are always green, the bosses are always purple, the nemesis are red, and the lieutenants or monsters are always orange. So, like, even mixing and matching, you can tell what color cards are what. They might be different shades from game to game, but they're different. And then the energy symbols went from a crystal to a lightning bolt. But otherwise, for all intents and purposes, they're the exact same thing. And then the deployment system changed. So you can mix and match these different things. This will allow you to mix, using the new deployment system with this will allow you to use different enemies in different locations, or mixing and matching. Monster boss deployment. The back to the boss and lieutenant nemesis cards from each set will not match. So this is basically saying once you're shuffling in the deck to find out whether a boss or a lieutenant or nemesis is coming up, is the Power Ranger ones have a Power Ranger back, G.I. Joes have a G.I. Joe back. So you'll be able to know, if you have one of each, you'll know which one you're coming up against, rather than, I don't know which one I'm getting. So they might say only play one from one or one from the other, or don't worry about if you're not that concerned. And then vehicles and Zords. You can play both of them at the same time. Just a little bit of things like that. Alright, there's our credits for everything. All the awesome people that worked on this game. We have the design system, which is by Jonathan Ying. So if you do check out the Facebook pages for these, the Renegade Studio Games, Power Rangers, or G.I. Joes, he's active on there occasionally, so if you ever want to ask questions, he might be able to help. Otherwise, the fans are definitely more than helpful to answer. Other notable people just to shout out, not that everyone on here isn't worth shouting out, is Scott Data and Sarah Erickson from Renegade Studios, who usually lots of the stuff about, they're on the Renegade side here. They do lots of the promotions when these sets are coming out, and they talk about them, they go over the reveals and stuff. Really great at answering questions. Also, Jordan Gator, the community manager, he's active on the Facebook page when the rest of these guys can't be available to help answer questions. And on the back, we just got an awesome thing. It just shows all the different stuff there. Alright, so I'm going to call that part 1 for this video. That is mission critical, me kind of going through the overall rules. Part 2 will be me actually going through all the cards and the components. Alright, I'll see you guys there. Bye.